Okay, welcome to my second time recording this because the first time I didn't properly capture my audio. Look, I know what you're thinking. A Miraculous video in 2024? This fandom is pretty dead, and everything that has needed to be said probably has been. Well, about a year ago when season 5 was still coming out, I had this huge video planned. I was going to cover everything about the show, every episode, every scandal, every costume change. But then the season 5 finale happened, and I just lost all motivation to talk about this show. But I already wrote 47 pages of notes, which I have condensed down to 8 for this, and I bought a bunch of merch for this, and I made stuff for this video, so I am at least going to complain. Hey, it's Kismet. I have here a chocolate milk, given that this is a kid's show, felt appropriate, but just because it's a kid's show, it doesn't mean it gets a pass on being bad, because kids deserve well-made media. You know that already. I'm assuming if you've clicked on this show that you're like a fan, or maybe an ex-fan, but that you generally know what's going on. That being said, just in case, this is your spoiler warning up to season 5. I'm going to try to make this recap brief, but be warned, the further we go, the more and more I have to say. So let's begin. Season 1. We meet our hero pair and our villain, and we establish our villain of the week or akumatization of the week formula. We learn how the Miraculous works, some of their limitations, and meet the rest of the main cast. To me, it is clear at this point that the writers had no idea that they were going to be getting 6+ seasons of this show. But it's charming in its earnestness. The scope was small, the show was simple, life was good. Season 2. More of the same. We do meet some additional characters such as Kagami and Luca, and we also learn about the wish that could be granted if the Cat and Ladybug Miraculous are brought together. Cat Noir receives his first big rejection from Ladybug, but he is persistent. It gets annoying. And we get our first additional superheroes, Rena Rouge and Carapace. We get a couple of power-ups that are kind of just pushed to the side for most of the show. If I'm not mistaken, we only get to see 3, but I think there's 6 that are teased, right? Anyways, we also learned that Kwamis should not use their powers without their holders or terrible things will happen. And then we also learned that Gabe is Hawkmoth and that he's also Mr. Freeze a little bit. Oh, and Chloe gets the Bee Miraculous. So we have a total of 3 new heroes to the mix. There is so much filler in this season. Some plot is furthered, but not in any meaningful way. Season 2 was much like season 1. Simple. Season 3. A shocking amount of filler for the 3rd season of a show. And I do believe that this is the season that sets off the trend of having reveals of identities only for them to be retconned at the end of the episode. We'll talk about it later, but it gets really out of hand. It honestly becomes kind of insulting. But we also get a bunch of new heroes, new Miraculous holders, as well as an episode with some pretty big lore drops in a time travel episode that actually, now that I think about it, is probably all irrelevant now that the season 5 finale happened. We also get arguably the most cringe moment in the entire series, but we also get the iconic Cat Blanc or Chat Blanc episode. Kind of a fan favorite. We also get more time travel contradictions. I might talk about this later, how painful the way that they handle time travel in the show is. It makes no sense. I hate it. And then Felix is introduced right before what I would argue is the most hated finale in the whole show, which again, now that I think about it, that actually might go to season 5 now. You let me know which finale you think is worse. But Master Fu names Ladybug the new guardian, losing all of his memories in the process and dooming Ladybug to the same fate one day. Overall, this is the season where I think the show's issue with pacing really starts to show through. We get a lot of nothing is allowed to sit for any amount of time. It has to be introduced and then immediately solved. We'll also talk a little bit more about this later on. We get a lot of like synthetic plot progression, like a lot is introduced, but none of it ever progresses, such as people suspecting identities of our heroes and our villain, and only for it to kind of be brushed off, or like lore backdrops of a character that are immediately forgotten or like aren't important. Season 3 seemed to be a bit of a struggle for the fandom as well as the creators. Season 4. This is the season where I feel like the writers were trying and they were like on the same page about stuff. We see Adrian and Marinette realize how hard living these double lives are, and it even brings Marinette to tell Alia that she's Ladybug, bringing her into the fold, into the behind the scenes, which means Rena Rouge can help Ladybug a lot more and take stuff off of her plate, which does not go over well with Cat Noir. The mouse, the pig, and the tiger Miraculous go into circulation, so more new heroes. We see Alia wear the Ladybug Miraculous, which is kind of fun. And then we also see Luca kind of accidentally discover the secret identities of both Ladybug and Cat Noir. But don't worry, this goes basically nowhere. Otherwise, this whole season is just Adrian relentlessly bitching. Some of it is warranted, but a lot of it isn't, which makes the whole lot of it kind of annoying. But ultimately, it leads Adrian to quit being Cat Noir until the end of the episode. Oh, and here are 4 new Miraculous to just fill out our team, I guess. It's quite unceremonious. Now, I will say, I think the finale of season 4 is the best we've ever gotten. By the end of it, we have a major power shift in Hawkmoth having all of the Miraculous. We have an emotional climax for our 2 main heroes, and the duo back to supporting each other like they always have. So Adrian can stop bitching. Plus, the finale has one of my favorite villain types, power copycats. Similar to Parasite in DC, and almost a carbon copy of Amazo, Strike Back learns powers by seeing them used. This kind of villain forces heroes to be thoughtful and strategic. They can't just brute force their way through. Oh, they just teleport the Sentimonsters into the sun? Oh, okay. I still stand by this being one of the best season finales though, because although the villain and hero's plans are like a little extra, they're not overly contrived like they have been in the past. By the end of the season, things were happening, things were changing, and they weren't reverting back at the end of every episode, mostly. The writers seemed to deliver a message that they wanted a plot progression that was different and more thoughtful than previous seasons. Season 4 definitely did not achieve that, but it laid the groundwork. You know, I'm kind of getting tired of this chocolate milk. Plag, claws out. Yen. Is this a fucking Jaeger bomb?
Yeah.
Cataclysm. That is fucking vile. Oh my god. Can I have a different drink? Can I trust this?
Yeah.
It's really pretty and sparkly. Fun. That's a lot of fuck, actually. Season 5. This season left me so hopeful and so let down after every single episode. It felt like it wanted to be something good. Like the fandom could feel it in like the different choices and story beats, but it was just so disappointing in the end. But the notable things for this season kick off with Hawkmoth being absolutely wild, getting his arm cataclysmed. And since he left the situation tied up with Ladybug's lucky charm, she can't use it to release the magical butterflies to fix the situation. So Gabe's life is now on the clock. Gabe then not only desecrates the Miraculous by turning them into shitty little rings, He also creates these shitty little alliance rings that he can then use to send miraculous powers to akumatized villains. Episode 4 is wild because we get Ladybug and Cat Noir fantasizing about being with each other and getting married and having a family. And then when they wake up from the dream state, from the Pig Miraculous, Cat Noir is ready to kill. It was some emotional depth that these characters do not get far too often. And even though the fantasy from the Pig Miraculous and like the two of our heroes grappling with that is just kind of brushed under the rug, I still do really like this episode. Moving on, we get our love square flipped. What? Our Miraculous users flipped for an episode. Quagatamas are introduced only for them to be never mentioned again. And then Marinette and Cat Noir kiss. What the fuck? And then Cat Noir puts his foot in his mouth, which leads Marinette to getting akumatized. And so then they kiss again, only for both parties to then like leave the situation, like upset and confused and like understandably shaken. Following are some of my least favorite episodes of Tiki and Plog going out and finding different holders for their Miraculous so that Marinette and Adrian can be together because yes, our love square flipped again. You gotta keep up. This shit moved so quick. I literally didn't take any notes besides this shit felt like a fever dream because so much happens. Because Hawkmoth nearly wins, he takes both of the Miraculous, but luckily, I guess, Plog is able to destroy his own Miraculous? What? Literally so much happens in this episode, I cannot recap it for you all, but what you need to know is that by the end of it, we are reverted back to Marinette as Ladybug, Adrian is Cat Noir, Hawkmoth is a loser, and this situation is never spoken of ever again. Marinette has such a hard time confessing to and being with Adrian that at one point I had a theory that her Miraculous was physically holding her back somehow, like the cat and the ladybug were just like magnets to each other or something. This was very much disproven later. Remember how Luca knows the identities of our two heroes? Well, besides a few like winks to the audience and nudges between the characters, this point is never really addressed, except in a single episode where at the end of it, Luca decides to ship himself off in order to protect Marinette and Adrian and their identities. But Hawkmoth knows that Luca knows their identities. He is rich and powerful and influential, and we know from the specials that he's willing to travel to get a leg up. Why would he not follow Luca, track him down to the end of the earth, and torture the information out of him? Whatever, what do I know? Oh, it's starting to get warm. I really thought that they were going to kill Gabe right here, or like put him in bed with an IV drip, but no, he just collapses and has a little nap and it's fine. We get like a lot of Ladrian content and a random musical episode. Hey, remember how Gabe's life is on the clock? Well, using the power of the Kwamis, Gabe and Natalie have found a solution to stave off the cataclysm from killing Gabe. So those stakes are nullified until the writers find them convenient. Felix and Kagami are an item now. We get a lot of Lila shenanigans, but I honestly never found any of them very compelling. When you're dealing with large-scale, end-of-the-world type shit, it feels kind of silly to stop and give any care about a school bully, even one as comically evil as Lila. This hood is too much. I might need to take the hood down just for a little bit. Hey, remember those charms that Ladybug has been giving out that kind of became useless in season 4? Well, it turns out with the power of friendship and hope, those little charms turn into big-ass shields that auto-cleanse Akumas, which, as you might imagine, never comes up again. Anyway, Chloe usurps her father? Okay. Hey, remember how...
She doesn't need to transform back before she uses her power again?
No, because she's an adult.
Awesome. I can't wait to grow up.
Well, our heroes just decide to grow up.
Hold it!
Hello, Editing Kismet here. It was at this point in the video that I was going to reference Marinette and Adrian's ages in the show during the episode where they grow up, Revelation, but it was near impossible to get a confident answer for Marinette or Adrian's birthdays or ages. There's nothing official posted or said from like the show's team, and the timeline is so hard to follow that even the fandom has no clear-cut answer, despite its best efforts. But we can make some educated guesses, so stick with me here. In season 4, episode 22, Gabe says that he has been at the Hawk Moth game for 100 weeks. This episode is the 100th episode in the show, which to me tells us that each episode translates to generally 1 week. Revolution, the episode where our heroes grow up, is episode 127 overall. Keep that in mind. Marinette turns 14 in season 2, episode 8, which is episode 34 overall. So that means there have been 93 episodes between Marinette's 14th birthday and Revolution, meaning it's been roughly 93 weeks. 93 divided by 52 weeks in a year means it has been a bit over 1 3/4 years. So if this is the method we're going by, in Revolution, Marinette is 15, nearly 16. Adrian is shown to turn 14 in season 1, episode 9, so episode 9 overall. So there's been 118 episodes, or 118 weeks, between his 14th birthday and Revolution. 118 divided by 52 gives us just over 2 1/4 years. So Adrian is like squarely 16. This is all obviously speculation with some heavy assumptions being made. Some episodes take place directly after one another, while some other episodes have a week occur during the span of the episode. So this is definitely not a perfect system. I'm sure the showrunners are keeping the ages of our heroes quiet for a reason. If you were to ask me, I would say it's because they don't even know how much time has passed. Like, they don't track it. They don't know how old their characters are. But this is the best I can guess with the info that I have available to me. But even if I'm months off with this calculation, I do think it's safe to assume that our heroes are between 15 and 16 during the events of Revolution. Yeah, that's when I matured too. Hang on a damn minute. If they're grown up at the age of like 16-ish, why the hell isn't Julica able to spam her ability when given the Tiger Miraculous? As we learned like 3 episodes ago, Julica was held back a year, and so she's a year older than the rest of her classmates. Is it about emotional maturity? Because I would argue that these two do not act any more mature than they have in the past. They've always been serious when it matters and goofy the rest of the time. Don't get me wrong, the moment when Cat Noir gets to spam his Cataclysm, it's so cool, and I got hyped up from the moment, but it just feels kind of unearned and convenient. I wish there was a little bit more build-up to the moment, like maybe in a previous episode they like get one of the little spots back because they like defended each other or like did something that they didn't want to but had to do, you know, being mature in a situation. Anyways, this side plot kind of comes to a head that Gabe is sending Adrian to London next year, and Adrian can't figure out how to tell Marinette, and suddenly Gabe decides that it must happen now, right now. Pack your bags, kid, get your shit. So Adrian is finally kind of forced to tell Marinette about the whole situation while he's on his way to the airport and she's on her way to the end of the school year dance. Unwavering, Marinette mopeds past private airport security, and the two share their first kiss, only to be ripped apart from each other. The melodrama is palpable. Now, so much is about to happen in the next 3 episodes, so stick with me. Kagami and Felix put on a weird little play to tell Marinette that Felix and Adrian and Kagami are all Centimonsters, created by the Peacock Miraculous. We will talk about this later. While Marinette watches a play and takes a nap, Cat Noir is fighting for his life against his akumatized father. He gets hit with nightmare gas, but manages to pull out a win. But since the kids manage to escape their cushy hotel rooms, Gabe and Tsurugi escalate to locking them into tiny padded cells. Okay. So with nightmare gas spread far and wide, Gabe and Tsurugi offer an antidote of sorts via the Alliance rings, which kind of just turns everyone into iPad babies, but it also gives Gabe the ability to turn those iPad babies into miraculous power-wielding drones. Side note, at one point Natalie decides that she will try to defeat Gabe by murdering him with a crossbow. Ladybug breaks into the Agreste household trying to protect Adrian, but you know what she finds instead? Natalie dying, an army of drones, and her sworn enemy. This man is running on nothing but adrenaline and latex at this point. Ladybug de-transforms so the drones can't track and find her, but Hawkmoth is in the house looking for her. Plog finds Marinette, and oh, why is Plog here without Adrian? Adrian is not present for any of this episode to confront the fact that his father has been the main antagonist for the past 5 seasons of this godforsaken show. That's right, this show about a superhero duo in which one of those heroes is the son of the main villain. The final episode only includes the other half of that superhero duo in the final showdown. But sure, this is very hype and not ugly at all. Welcome to the final episode. We got about 25 minutes to figure this all out and come to a conclusion. Bug Noir uses a cataclysm on the ground, which lands them in the basement where Adrian's supposedly late mother is being kept in stasis. We have a brief battle in which Marinette comes out on top only to do the dumbest thing I have ever seen her do. Trust this man. My camera overheated. Where were we? As I was saying, the coolest part of not only this episode, but kind of this entire show is Tiki and Plog's true forms and their fusion into Gimme? That is some be not afraid shit. Gabe gives his vague ass wish. He tells Gimme to read his heart and read his soul, which means we as the audience don't actually know what his wish was. Way to cover your future asses, writers. Reality is rewritten, a flash of white, and all the audience knows is that Emily seems to be alive, Natalie seems fine, Gabe is being remembered as a hero for some reason, Adrian and Marinette are still together, they are still Ladybug and Cat Noir. Marinette gives both of the family rings to Adrian and distributes the Miraculous to their holders indefinitely. Marinette never found the butterfly Miraculous though, and we are shown that Lila has it. Yay! There's also this weird utopian environmentalism message at the end of the show, which as a concept, I'm down for. Save the earth, changes must be made, yada yada yada. But the way it was handled was so heavy-handed and kind of condescending. It was so forced and broke any immersion that I had with the ending and the wish. This season had so much going for it. There were quite a few moments where it felt like something good was happening for the writing of the show. Deeper plot was developing, ideas were being explored, consequences were happening and not being time traveled away. But then there are other moments where it feels like the show creates pointless interactions and empty plot points. Like, what was the point of Luca finding out Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities and holding on to that information for half a season if he was just gonna get shipped off when it first came up? Sometimes the show created genuinely interesting conflict points, but they never gave themselves enough time to expand on it, to let it breathe, to let the full depth of the situation sit with the audience. It would have to be figured out by the end of the episode. Like Marinette and Cat Noir's romance, they went on one date and the whole arc of their relationship was solved in an episode and a half. God forbid the audience gets to sit with this honestly monumental development of the show. Even during the final conclusion of the Gabriel Agreste arc, Adrian/Cat Noir was not present at all. This show, through all of season 4, explored what it would be like for them to not be a duo, and in the end decided that it was important that the two of them were together to make themselves their best selves and to lift each other up. Half of that duo was not present for the defeat of their arch nemesis, and therefore the completion of their overarching goal. Their dynamic feels like Batman and Robin when it should feel like Batman and Superman. Why not have Adrian be present to find out that his dad is Hawkmoth if in the end Gabe wins and rewrites reality anyways? The show is no stranger to retconning reveals. I get that the showrunners want Marinette to be important. She's the main protagonist, after all. But imagine the characterization that would come from the final battle with Adrian present, realizing that his father is Hawkmoth, and that Hawkmoth's ultimate goal is to essentially resurrect his mother. And Adrian having to grapple with the decision before him, bring his mother back, who he loves and misses dearly, or forsake his family for the good of the universe. How many directions you could take the characters and the story after that. But instead, they chose to keep their status quo. How incredibly disappointing that after 5 seasons of your show, none of your main cast has had any important character moments, realizations, consequences, sacrifices, or personal development. Looks like I need a refill. Tiki, spots on. Lucky charm. I have to take this mask off. This is horrible. It feels terrible. Oh. Welcome. I can't really attach this lav mic to this costume at all, so I might just have to hold it on a little stick. I can feel this wig slowly inching off of my scalp, so please forgive any strange head shapes that may occur. This Spirit Halloween costume is very see-through. Let's get into some of my more nitpicky issues with the show. Immediately, I want to talk about these two not recognizing each other's voices. There was a theory going around for a little while that the miraculous transformations kind of like mask everything about you and make it difficult for people to recognize you. And listen, I am fine with suspending my disbelief a good amount. I really am. But some of this really just started stacking up. Let me take you through a couple of examples, okay? Season 1, episode 11, Cat Noir impersonates Adrian to try to reassure Ladybug that Adrian is safe. So this should establish for us that Ladybug recognizes Adrian's voice whether he's Adrian or Cat Noir. Season 1, episode 19, Cat Noir is transformed into a Reflecta-Doll, so he can't use any of his powers or anything, but he's still technically transformed under all of that. When he goes to communicate a plan with his classmates, no one seems to recognize his voice as Adrian. They recognize his voice as Cat Noir. Ladybug also immediately recognizes him as Cat Noir. This is why I say that Cat Noir is still Cat Noir and under all of that Reflect-Doll. But this also means that when Adrian is Cat Noir, people should recognize his voice as Cat Noir. So now, even transformed into a Reflect-Doll, people recognize Cat Noir as Cat Noir, including Ladybug. Season 2, episode 8, Ladybug and Cat Noir de-transform next to each other with their eyes closed, and soon after re-transform next to each other, which means they have to perform the verbal components necessary to transform right next to each other. Say what you want once they're already transformed, but they were not. They should have recognized each other's voice saying, Tiki spots on, Plaid claws out. Yet somehow they do not recognize each other's voices here. Season 2, episode 25, Marinette and Adrian are standing on opposite sides of a wall, de-transformed, feeding their kwamis, having a full-on conversation where neither of them recognize each other's voice. This situation, by the way, happens a couple other times, and they never recognize each other. At this point, I was freaking the fuck out, crawling in my skin, so pissed off at this situation. But what I think is the most damning piece of evidence here, season 5, episode 18, Felix transforms with the Peacock Miraculous, and Adrian recognizes Felix's voice while he is transformed. I thought the Miraculous hides the identities of their holders with magic, with miraculous magic. Well, apparently only when the plot requires it. Oh no, I cannot scroll with this. Must be removed. Man, that actually, sensory-wise, is a lot better. Although I am certain there are way more examples to pull from, this is where I shall rest my case on this matter. All I want you to take away from this is that The show wants it both ways. They do recognize each other, they don't recognize each other. Like, I feel like the only thing you could argue here is that they're under high stress and not really paying attention, but this happens so many times and they become accustomed to high stress situations. Moving on to a few quicker things, hopefully. The show constantly introduces stakes only to nullify or immediately solve them with literally zero consequence. Such as the charms that Ladybug gives out to people to protect them, only for Hawkmoth to at some point just decide to overcome that. Luca knowing the secret identities of our two main heroes, only for it to never come up, and when it does, he just gets shipped off. The entirety of season 4, episode 22. This episode, in a way, is kind of one of my favorites plot-wise, but I just cannot let go of the fact that these events take place over the course of a single episode, completely rectifying the consequences, leaving no room to breathe, and no room to grow in their relationship. It's just like a pointless wild ride. Inconsistent power levels, oh my god. I'm talking about the amount of time that it takes for a hero to de-transform after using their ability. At some point, I think 5 minutes is introduced as the amount of time, but like, where? Show me where. Show me where this happens in 5 minutes. Sometimes it's just like immediate. I'm also talking about using multiple Miraculous. Is that draining or is that not draining? Is that draining and our characters are just super powerful and super capable and complete Mary Sues? You need to set clear and specific rules and you need to show them happening. You cannot have your audience doing the work for you, finding excuses for why things happen certain ways. The laws of your magic system should not be figured out and decided within fandom conversation. Speaking of the power of the Miraculous, the next thing on my list is the insane overpowered levels of some of the Miraculous. The Rooster is an insane Miraculous to put in this show. They had to make up and write in so many arbitrary rules to fix this monster that they had created. For those who don't know or would like a refresher, the Rooster Miraculous is connected to the Kwami of pretension, which vocabulary.com says is what you're guilty of when you boorishly try to impress others with how important or clever you are. Showrunners seem to be talking to this Kwami a lot. What the Miraculous actually does is give the user the power of sublimation, which gives the user the ability to give themselves any superpower they want. You can see why this would be a problem. So the writers decided to run some damage control in season 5, episode 3, stating that the Rooster Miraculous cannot give the user a power that already belongs to another Miraculous, cannot grant a wish, and cannot bestow a superpower that interferes with another Kwami's magic or any secondary magic, such as sickness from using a damaged Miraculous or revealing the identity that a Miraculous hides. The pig is another Miraculous that I have problems with, but for very different reasons. The pig Miraculous gives the gift power, which trances its target into visions of their deepest desires. I made that sound a bit more sinister than I was going for. But this gift power kind of renders the victim into this like catatonic state, as seen in season 5, episode 4. What a specific and kind of useless power. What was the point of adding this to the roster? If you just wanted to do the episode for the man who has everything from Justice League Unlimited, in which Superman is subdued by a telepathic plant, which renders its victims helpless while in a dreamlike delusion, only for Superman to have to willingly give up his son and his perfect life on Krypton so he can break free? Just say that. Seriously, these events are near one-to-one. And while we're talking about comics, my next little nitpick is about Thomas Astrick tweeting at Mark Miller about how his show has created so many unique superpowers. How incredibly pretentious and disrespectful. This man has been in the comics industry since the 80s. He's written Spider-Man, Wolverine, Superman, The Flash. He wrote Marvel's Civil War. For Thomas to get on twitter.com and suggest that not only Mark, but the entire comics industry has never heard of the power of creation, mind control, or multiplication, or storms, or power disruption or any of these other unoriginal powers is downright narcissistic. I really wish I had more time to talk about Miraculous and Justice League similarities. Miraculous is clearly inspired quite often by not only Justice League, but all sorts of superhero stories, which I want to make clear, it's perfectly fine to be a fan and to be inspired by other people's work. Anyways, moving on. Next nitpick is the sheer number of reveals that happen only to be like immediately retconned. And not to mention the plethora of near reveals that happen. The writers tease it so much that I think I can speak for most of the fandom when I say that it's just kind of lost the tension. I mean, do I still want a reveal? Yeah, absolutely. But is it going to have the same impact now as it would have in season 3 or 4? I don't think so. Next, everything feels like a first draft. The show just kind of jumps from cool thing to cool thing. Nothing really gets stringed together or built upon to create deeper moments. And to fix this, they kind of just say like, oh yeah, well, this happened off screen months ago and you just weren't there to see it, but it happened and this is an impactful moment, which is dull. Next is Chloe getting absolutely doubled down on by the writers. And when I say the writers, I think we all know who I mean. Now, I am not someone who is rooting for Chloe by any means, but the writers really did take her from like bully to villain to scourge of the earth demonic witch so quickly and so brutally. It was just way too much. Even going as far to damn near directly talk to the fans about it. My last little nitpick here, you may not agree with. I am not a fan of the Sentimonster theory becoming canon. The main reason though is because I think this just opens the door for so many plot holes and continuity errors. The show's team just has not given me the confidence that they'll be able to handle remembering this and how their future choices will affect this detail. Overall, I think this show has good ideas, great ideas, but just terrible execution. This show is the definition of contrived. Contrived, deliberately created rather than arising naturally or spontaneously, created or arranged in a way that seems artificial and unrealistic. If I had to pick one word to describe all of my issues with the show, it would be that one. At this point, I'm not even excited to watch the next season. I'm actually kind of dreading it. You know what would have made me excited? If Lila didn't get Butterfly Miraculous, but something else instead. I get that the show really likes its akumatization of the week formula, but what if Lila got the fox or something else? What if Ladybug recovered the Butterfly Miraculous and at some point was forced to use its power to win the day? What an interesting and complex moment for our main character. Something else that would have made me excited is if we had all of our reveals and this coming season our couple had to grapple with it all. Ladybug knows about most, if not all, of the timelines in which she and Kat tried to make things work and couldn't. She'd be a wreck, overly vigilant and concerned, looking out for all of the ways that things could fall apart. She'd also be happy to not only be able to share her deepest secrets with her love, but also to know that her partner is reliable and contactable. They'd be stronger, which would make all of Marinette's concerns and doubts conquerable. Adrian could grapple with the knowledge that his father was Hawkmoth. Was his sacrifice worth it? Would he do the same? Are villainous traits in his blood? He holds the power of destruction. What if he's doomed to destroy all that lays before him? Would he destroy for Marinette? How far is he willing to go for her? What lines is he willing to cross to protect her and their lives together? Is he willing to go to the extremes that his father did? But as the French say, Say lovey. Let's go ahead and end this video on a positive note, though. Here are all of my favorite Lucky Charms from the show. Go ahead and let me know what you thought of the show. What were your favorite and least favorite moments? Are you planning on watching season 6? I'd like to think that I have the self-respect and the restraint to not, but I guess we'll have to see. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was a ton of work. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Plag, claws out. Dumbest transition ever. I am so distracted by the feeling of my eyelashes and the feeling of the wig on my eyelashes. Do you like my shirt that was $25 from Hot Topic? Kick off with why can't I say that sentence? Kick off with hawk moth. Lucky charm.